Hey, welcome to the Cowboy Church of Brenham podcast. I am Andrew. This is Macy. Welcome.
Welcome.
I say welcome like you're not going to be here every single time.
I am here every single day.
Yeah. This is the pilot episode, number 1. We're also Cody in the booth. What's up, Cody?
What's up, my man?
Cody's back there
How are we?
hanging out.
Is the soundboard have like a applause in it that you can like add in? Or?
Actually, you know what? I think it might. Let me just double check in here one time.
I wish I had control of that.
Can we do it? Is it gonna work? Oh, boom.
We're joined by Cody in the booth.
Oh, it's crickets. Sorry.
Darn.
Dang.
Actually, you know what?
He's gonna secretly.
Applause. No,
Wish I had control
we've
of
been.
that.
This has been a long time in the coming. So,
Oh, yeah.
I am back here in the lovely producer stand, and y'all get the bright lights.
That's right. They put the good
put the-
faces up in front.
Yeah, they put the two best looking. Well, you know, I don't know about you. but-
That's debatable. You know, the two.
They said we really need a nice young lady up on the screen. Don't know what they said about Andrew.
No, all right,
but
hold on a second. Let's be honest here, Andrew. We're gonna out her right here in like
Yeah.
the first 3 minutes.
That's
of this
right.
episode.
Yeah.
Did we really say she needs to be up here, or was it more of her convincing? Like, hey, let me in there, let me
I'm
on
just
that
saying,
on that podcast.
Once we get going, once this podcast get going, like if you don't have me on here, the views are gonna go down.
Right.
So,
Hold on, but she jumped the question. Like, let's go back.
Okay.
Did she or did she not kind of insert herself in
I
this and
did,
said,
but
hey,
that's because I knew
I
the
wasn't.
potential
Hold
that
on
was
a second. I'm talking to Andrew. I am talking
I'm
to
trying,
Andrew.
and I'm trying not to get in trouble here. You know, I'm trying to protect myself.
I mean, this is the first 3 minutes of the podcast, and we're already right here. Andrew, please respond.
Hey, you know what? I think everybody who is involved wanted to be involved. Everybody who
Thank
was
you,
involved wanted to be
Andrew.
involved.
Yeah.
Everyone who's here, nobody was forced to be here. Some people might have forced themselves to be here. But, you know,
Thank you.
I'm just as guilty.
What's
Right?
funny is the main one who was wanting to be on here actually. Well, okay, never mind. I'll stop there. You were good, and you were like, I'll sit behind the screens.
Yeah, no, I mean this
But-
works out very well.
Well, that's just
If there was
That's
anybody
because
wanting to be on there, it was the one behind the
Ultimately,
screens
it's
right now.
because he didn't trust either one of us to
Well,
press the button.
This is true. That's fair.
Let's be honest. I mean, there's actually like 3 reasons. Okay, one, I didn't really trust either one of you. Two. Like that was number one.
Fair.
Fair enough.
Two, I'm the only one that actually has podcast experience in this room. And
I don't know what you're talking
three, part of my job was eventually when I came on staff that we were to start that I was to start a podcast. So
I think that was
you
written in the
know,
rules
it's just
whenever
one
I
of
came
those
on, too.
things
It's just-
that as
Had to dig.
it's I kind of had to be involved in this in some way, shape,
sure.
whether I wanted to or not.
Okay, fair.
But I do
fair.
want to. I do enjoy this. It's kind of fun being back. It's been, a couple
in
year
the studio.
hiatus of being on a podcast, but we're just consulting and kind of helping other people do their own stuff. So it's fun to be back in the realm
Well,
of this.
welcome back. You're about to
Yeah.
have the most fun that you've ever had doing podcasts. So
100%.
sure.
So I am looking forward to this. And Andrew, I think, I'm going to kind of let you lead this thing. I'm going to jump in where it is, but I do think we got some cool stuff for those of you that are watching. Obviously, this is the first pilot episode that Andrew mentioned earlier, and we're going to get to break down some stuff. We're going to have guests on. We're going to have all these different things. And Andrew's going to explain a little more about that. And I'm going to sit back here, and I'm going to produce.
Oh yeah. Well, part of the reason that we wanted to have the podcast was just to have more opportunities, just to get to interact with our church family and to communicate with them what's going on around the church, and also just get to speak into their lives. And so I think it's a really cool opportunity to, in a really natural and just kind of casual way,
yeah.
to talk like real people to real people.
Yeah, and them kind of get to learn a little bit more about, kind of. So some may have a perception of us because they only see us from 50 foot away
Right.
on a Sunday morning,
Right.
or they don't ever see Macy because she's always behind the scenes.
That's true. I like to be behind the scenes. So
Well, now you're up front and
hiding.
center.
yeah.
Front and center. One of the questions I want to ask is, there's a lot of churches, there's a lot of podcasts out there. What is it that makes the Cowboy Church of Brenham unique? What would you say to that? If someone asks you, what's special about Cowboy Church of Brenham, what is that we bring to the table?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, I feel like we have a very, maybe not diverse isn't the right word, but we have a bunch of different people from like age ranges. We have like the Western industry, but we have the more like younger individuals. So we have a wide range of people coming to church, but I don't know.
I think the thing that's really stands out to me about Cowboy Church is because all those people from different backgrounds and different walks of life are coming together. It's not the traditional like stuffy church experience that you might expect in a lot of places. You know, you come to Cowboy Church and it's a place that you want to be. You know,
Yeah.
I've been in churches where everybody was kind of dragging their feet to get in there, like, hey, we got to check this box
Right.
for the week.
People
Yeah,
get here
so-
early.
Yeah, people are like, hey, they
Well-
know we got to get here early because if we
Yeah.
don't, we're gonna miss out.
The coolest part that I've experienced this a lot here recently that I think about is, you know, there's so many different backgrounds. You know, it's not like, oh, hey, we're at a Baptist church and everybody there came from another Baptist church somewhere, or they just found, or they weren't going to church at all. Here it's like, man, you got people that were raised Catholic, you got people that have been Lutheran for most of their life, you got people that were in the Methodist church, Baptist church. Like, it doesn't matter. Like it truly is just a church. It is being the church. It doesn't matter what kind of background. It's like, hey, it's open, and to me that says, hey, we're doing a very good job of reaching
everybody.
no matter who it is. And then
Mhm.
obviously a lot of people have never been in church, kind of like I was when I started going to a Cowboy church. Was, you know, there was never a time that I've been like, oh, well, I didn't really know what church was. So that's probably the cool part, is I feel like we're hitting a lot of the avenues
Yeah.
where when people walk through the door, it's not just a, oh, well, this isn't, you know, I'm not one of them, so I don't fit in. And it's like, well, there is no one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
One of
I
them
was-
is anybody,
That's
you know?
right. That's
I actually
right.
had an encounter this past weekend with some friends who I've met in church, and they were actually explaining like they grew up in church and like coming from like back home and like transitioning over here and moving into a different church and having like finding a church is hard,
Mhm.
especially when you're a little bit younger and
Oh,
trying to
for
get
sure.
planted into a
100%.
community. But she was saying like she felt like other churches you can walk in and sometimes it feels cliquish, but as soon as she like stepped foot in the door, it was just like it felt home, like very natural and just not cliquish at all. So that was really cool to hear. Being of course like on staff here, very very neat.
It's
But-
it's honestly funny that you say that. That was the reason that Hannah and I decided when we were approached and offered with the position here. That's the reason that we took it.
Yeah.
You know, when I first tried out coming to Cowboy Church, nobody in the congregation knew this guy is a candidate for the student
Yeah.
pastor position.
Right.
And so they didn't know who I was, but man, even not knowing who I was, they didn't
Super
know that
welcoming.
I was somebody that might be on stage at any point.
But
Everybody,
they didn't treat you any differently.
not
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
leaders and the people who were volunteering, but even just the people in the congregation.
Right.
All of them genuinely were happy to see us.
Yeah.
Genuinely wanted to get to know us. It's one of I've seen a lot of churches do the meet and greet thing, and it was kind of just a formality
Yeah.
of you turn around, you say hi,
Right.
you shake hands with the guy
Mhm.
next to you, and then you
And then
stand
go
there
back to business.
awkwardly
Yeah.
waiting for the songs to start. But here it's like, no, people are walking the
Yeah.
aisle. Like I gotta find
Let's
somebody.
let's be
I-
honest though. It's an introvert's worst nightmare. I mean, let's
That is
just
true.
let's be honest. 'Cause like my inner introvert, like I've had to get out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
to me, I'm like,
I can attest
you
to
know.
that too, though. I remember, like, I came whenever I first got introduced
Mhm.
to the congregation. Like, I remember the meet and greet was right after, and like I came by myself, and I guess my family was there, but like everybody came up to me afterwards and was like, which people would still talk to me before they even knew who I was,
Yeah.
but people were like, "We're so happy to have you here," and just like welcome and like just super exciting, which is very like nice and encouraging and welcoming. So
a little overwhelming
yeah,
though.
a little overwhelming at times, but in the end, it was a nice thing.
Well,
so.
and I think that's that brings up a fair point. You know, some people are going to come to Cowboy Church and the experience just is too different for them, and that Cowboy Church.
that's okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Cowboy Church is very different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, you show up and it takes approximately 30 seconds into the first song, and you realize,
Yeah.
hey, this ain't
We're
like
like-
church I've
Yeah.
been to before, man.
Which brings up a good point, that there's obviously some I'm not gonna say perceptions, but some maybe some barriers that
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
people didn't think about, or some things, and that's something we can kind of talk about just in general of those barriers or those things that maybe are
Like assumptions that
misconceptions
we-
or do what now?
Assumptions of
Yeah, assumption. I mean,
Cowboy
just
Church or-
I mean,
yeah.
and that's probably the best word to use is assumptions. Not even misconceptions. It's just you assume certain things. Like one of my favorite things I always like to start with when somebody I'm out wherever and somebody says, "Oh hey, whatever," and then start talking about church. So they're like, "Oh, where are you at church?" I'm like, or I'm inviting them to church. I'm like, "Hey, I promise you don't have to ride your horse to church to come to Cowboy Church." And which it normally gets a laugh, whatever. Some of them kind of look at me like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've had some of them kind of look at me like it catch them really real
Yeah.
off guard, which is fine. But I mean, assumptions is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thing you don't have to ride your horse to Cowboy Church because horses scare me. I'm on staff at a Cowboy Church, and those are big animals,
Yeah.
man. They
Yeah.
will mess you up if you're not careful. And
Well, having not like grown up because I grew up in Cowboy Church, so you
yeah.
who didn't, like, what were assumptions that you had prior to coming, like, being on staff here?
A lot of the assumptions that I had was one, I kind of expected it. One, I was afraid that it was going to be, we're going to meet in a tent outside in the dirt, and it's going to be miserable. And I kind of expected it.
Was it like a teepee or was it a tent?
Honestly.
Was it a bunch of teepees with a chuck wagon?
That's funny.
Yeah, that was one of the assumptions that I had whenever Cody first talked to me about Cowboy Church. Was like, man, I don't want to do church outside. It's it's hot in the
Seems
summer.
hot, and
It's hot.
we all know that you don't like sweating.
No,
so.
I hate it. It's not comfortable. I'm all about being comfortable, man. And you know what? So
That's for a later episode.
yeah, we're gonna break down all of my issues
Yeah.
some other time. No, that was one of the big assumptions that I had. Was like, oh, Cowboy Church, it's outside. These people, they just, they had to have things their way, and that like couldn't be farthest from the truth of like the way Cowboy Church here at Cowboy Church of Brenham actually operates. It's not about a group of people who have to have things done their way. It's a group of people who are doing things in a way to reach a community.
Yeah.
It's not about, I want my thing and nobody else was giving me my thing, so I'm going to go start my own. And that was kind of the impression that just, people have in general, I think, about Cowboy Church is like, really, you couldn't be happy with regular church. And it's like, that's so far from what the heart behind Cowboy Church is.
Yeah, that's really
Is like, we're trying to reach people that have looked at what most normal traditional churches bring to the table and say, I'm not welcome there. And like, that's what Cowboy Church is all about. We're not. Yeah, that's the biggest assumption I think that I had coming into it.
That's powerful. Like 100%.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely like shook me a little bit of like, man, I assumed things that are not fair. It was like a conviction of the Holy Spirit kind of moment of, man, I'm really assuming the worst about people I got no clue about.
Yeah, and that's the wild part talking about assumptions. I think you speaking of that, one of the biggest ones I had, but maybe I assume people think about is they think you have to be a cow, like you have to fit into a certain group of people, which is literally the exact opposite of everything that I think we stand for. It's like, hey, no, we don't. We want the ones who feel like they don't fit in any type of group, because I know some people like would think, oh, you got to be a cowboy, or you got to be you got to be a redneck. You got to love being in the dirt in the country. And while there are a lot of people who do that, like, hey, me included, like, there's a lot of people that don't, and that's okay. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who just enjoy what's going on here. You know what I mean? They don't own horses. They don't own cows. Like, I don't own any horses right now. I mean, just because I grew up in it, but and we know Andrew doesn't. So
they're scary.
Yeah,
Scary.
They're big animals, man.
But that's probably one of the biggest assumptions that I get. Like, I think some people misconceive is like, hey, they're expected. Oh, you got to fit into this group of people that in order to be welcome. And sadly, that is what traditional church has done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, hey, if you don't fit into this group of whatever type of people, then like, it's not necessarily that you're not welcome here, but you just don't really get included. You don't feel included. You don't feel these other things where, I feel like we try to do a really good job of that not being the case.
Yeah. I agree.
That's Macy, if we're talking about assumptions, those are some of the assumptions about Cowboy Church. what do you think are some of the assumptions that people who are not church people have about church in general that we want to kind of correct, that we're hope throughout this podcast, not just today's episode, but in general?
Yeah.
What's the assumption about church that you think we want to try to correct here?
Well, something that just immediately pops in my mind is like having like that you have to have it all together.
Mm.
And if we did, man, we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
but I mean, truthfully, like I think that's probably the biggest like fear of somebody who is like maybe new to their faith and wanting to step into a church is like, I have to clean up my act. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying of like, I have to fit the part. But that's not, correct at all. Like
Mhm.
we don't want you to have it all together, and we don't want you to, fit the mold of, cowboy church or what church in general. Of
Mhm.
like, Jesus like sat with a lot of different people of, all of the things. And so I would say just
Well, and I mean, I think you used a really powerful word right there that I want to hone in on. You said you used the word mold, and I believe like that's maybe the misconception so many times is like, or even churches are guilty of, is that they're trying to mold people into
Yeah.
certain thing, and that's the Holy Spirit's job.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit will mold you and give
Right.
conviction. Me and Emily, my wife, were having this conversation the other day of like, it's not about the like, so we get so caught up in the do's and the don'ts or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
But someone who doesn't have conviction over something, they don't understand why that's
Yeah.
like, and until the Holy Spirit begins to mold their heart and show them, hey, as a follower of Christ, this is not a good thing. This is not healthy for you. It's really hard just to. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you may know, like just in general, as human beings, we have a moral compass of good and bad.
Mhm.
But in the big scheme of things, when we talk about, okay, I'm trying to live for Christ, it's not as much of, okay, well, don't do this, don't do that. Like when the Holy Spirit begins to mold somebody's life and not us as the church or us as the people or whoever, that's when you see life change. Our goal is just to be like, you think about the story of the potter's clay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And where the potter is shaping it in a certain, and sometimes it may not look the way, it doesn't look like it's what it's going to
Yeah.
look at the finished product, but during that time, the potter has a plan
Mhm.
for it. And I don't know. I think that's huge. It's not the table's job. It's not the clay's job. It's the potter is going to do what it wants to do with that,
Mhm.
and it's going to use certain things. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's a big deal that maybe
sure.
we can look past.
Well, and like,
Mhm.
and everybody starts their faith journey somewhere,
Right.
and at different places where, like, on the surface, it'd be really easy to look at one person and another and say that one is more spiritual.
Mhm.
But you can't see what's going on in their heart, right? Like,
Yeah.
all of us start infinitely far from God,
Yeah.
and God, equally to all of us, closes the entire gap.
Mhm.
Right. And I think a lot of people look at church and they assume they want me to be this kind of a person. I got to be this good. I got to look this, this kind of a way before I can even enter into that crowd. And it's like, hey, we've got people from all kinds of backgrounds who God has redeemed out of all kinds of different things. And so we've got people who have been saved for less than a week coming and joining worship with people who have been saved 60, 70 years
Yeah.
ago. And like, hey, the fact that they started their journeys at different times and in different places and come from different backgrounds, they are still welcome to worship together.
Right.
And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people assume, hey, you've got to be good enough before you can start going
Yeah.
to the church, and that's not at all
Right.
how God intended the church to
So
be.
let me ask both of you this, and Macy, I'm gonna ask you first. As we kind of talk about this and are working through this, what is one thing that you would say, as far as we've talked about encouragement, like the things that are happening around here? I mean, to me, it sounds encouraging. So, to you, what is one encouraging thing that you see in, at least for us right now, the cowboy church world? What's one good thing? Because obviously, like I said, we're just hands and feet of Jesus, but God's doing something cool here, and we're lucky to be a part of it. But what is something encouraging that you would probably look at or see? There's something that's going on that is encouraging you right now about where God has you in this place right now.
Within Cowboy Church
Yeah,
Brenham.
yeah.
Well, I mean, the Fold, which is our young adult ministry, is really encouraging, not just for me, but like we were talking about community and like there is such a strong community within the Fold, and we've only been going for just a few months
So,
now.
so explain to somebody who is brand new, they're just now
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
What is the Fold?
Yeah, so the Fold is our young adult ministry. It's from 18 up until I guess mid 30s, I believe. But just an opportunity for them to come every Thursday night and just fellowship with each other. The first Thursday we have a worship, and then Cody or somebody will get up on stage and share a message. And then the following weeks we'll have just a little devotional, and then we'll break out into groups. And so that's been really fun and really cool to experience and like witness to, because you get to sit in a room full of different people, from different age ranges, different backgrounds, and we just like, it doesn't matter, you don't see any of those differences when you're sitting around,
Yeah.
a room and talking with each other. And so it's really cool. And like, I guess just going back to the encouragement part is like, you sit with these people and like, you don't know them from Adam. And some of them you've just
Yeah.
met that night, but like hearing their stories and hearing what they're going through, it's like, oh, like
Yeah.
I belong, like I fit in. I'm not
Yeah.
the only one. So
Right. Especially as like when there's, 30, 40, 50 people
Yeah.
in your like, because right now we live in a generation that feels so alone. So
Oh.
when you see that other people are like together there with
Yeah.
you, like, and speaking on that, like that's for me, that's part of my same thing would be that, because
Yeah.
of there's people that I've seen for the last 2 years that all of a sudden in the last 4 months, I've
yeah.
made a like get to talk to them on a personal level
Yeah.
and have a connection with them and all these things that I just wasn't before. And not for any rhyme or reason, but just there was an opportunity, and
Yeah.
now that's there.
Yeah.
So anyway, Andrew, what about you?
Man, I think one of the things that's been most encouraging to me, and really it's been since I came on staff. This whole year I've been on staff now for a little over 9 months, and so
Wow.
it's not been
Time
that-
goes
I
slow.
know time goes slow.
Sorry.
It's like, I know.
Sorry.
No,
good.
it's been a really cool learning process for me just to get acclimated to the culture and things like that. But one of the things that has been so surprising and so impressive to me is the capacity in which the people of the church, the congregation, do the work, the way
Yeah.
that they serve. And that's been really cool to see, not just with all our teams that do different ministries and stuff, but in our student ministry. There's student ministries in other churches where, man, you can't scrounge up 3 or 4 adults to help
Right.
out, and we've got a team of people, where there's people that have wanted to help out, and I say, hey, I just don't really
Yeah.
have a place for you, because we've already got so many people helping out. And that's been something that's the whole church, across all of our teams. Almost all of them are experiencing that kind of same excitement of, we've got a lot of people who want to help out,
Yeah.
and that's been the thing that's been so impressive to me is
There is always a spot for somebody.
there's always a
Yeah.
spot. There's
Yeah,
always
there's
a spot.
always a spot.
Yeah.
I promise.
we'll
Yeah.
find some
We'll
work
find
for you.
room.
We'll find work for you. But it's one of those things where you go to some churches and people show up expecting to be fed.
Mhm.
They expect to get something out of it. And you're going to find people like that at every church. You're going to find people like that at Cowboy Church of Brenham. And there's nothing wrong with that as a starting point. But that's what's so cool about what God is doing here at Cowboy Church of Brenham is people are starting there and they're catching what God is doing, and they're realizing I can be a part of it. Not that God needs something out of me,
Right.
but that he loves me enough to get me involved. It's a little bit like you get little kids who want to help out with stuff, and like, man, it'd be easiest if you would just like get out of the way. But they can learn something, and over time they become really valuable. You can teach somebody skills, and God does that with us, where he doesn't need us. We get in God's way a lot of times, but he allows us to come and be a part. And there's a lot of people here at Cowboy Church who have just like been lit on fire with that realization of like,
Yeah.
God wants me to help, and
Yeah.
he's given me a place to serve. And that's so ingrained in the culture here. And that's
Yeah.
been so cool to see that, other churches, people show up and just expect to, be given, spoon to mouth kind of a treatment. And here people are like, let's get to work. Let's get
Yeah.
in the trenches. Let's do it.
Yeah. Not
That's all.
afraid of
I
some hard
love
work.
that. I love that about
Yeah.
Cowboy Church.
No, I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree, and that's one of the cool things. Whenever I was interviewing a couple years ago, um, I remember, I flew in and all this, and of course we were coming to church Sunday morning, and we got there like I don't remember like 8 o'clock or 8:30, maybe it was 8:30 because they were only at one service at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting there. It was like an hour and a half before, and I figured, we're gonna be the first ones here. We're gonna open stuff up. Da 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 da. And Pastor Troy still tells this story often. Is like we get there, and I think, and there's like 30 cars in the parking lot, and I turn and look at him. I'm like, what are all these cars? He's like, well, those are the people that are here serving already. And like, I coming from where I was at, where it's like I used to be the one that did open up the church on Sunday morning and things like that. I was the first one there on Sundays every time. Now we still have people that served at the other church, but like here, I mean, like people are like real excited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's a little scary
Yeah,
sometimes.
they're
I'm like,
eager,
you like
very
to
eager.
serve
They're
a lot,
Personal
And-
investment.
and yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, there's. I mean, I think people start getting here like 5 a.m. on
Yeah.
Sunday morning. Like it's
Yeah.
like it's wild, and that's the cool. Like you talk about the encouragement part. It's not just hey, there's a lot of people serving. No,
Yeah.
people are excited.
Yeah.
To go serve. They're excited to go do these things, and that's just. I mean, that's like when other people are excited. You know how it is. It's like at a kid's birthday when you're a kid and you're at a birthday party. It could be something stupid, but when everybody gets excited about it, you're excited.
Yeah.
You're excited
Yeah.
about it. You know what I mean? Like is that clown funny? No, but everybody's laughing, so we're gonna laugh. But those type of things. So I think that's really cool to kind of hear that. It's really encouraging in that moment
Yeah.
to hear
Yeah.
those things as well.
Well, and
So,
I think that's another like misunderstanding assumption that people have about church is that like it's boring to be at,
right.
Yeah.
that it's not going to be fun, that it's going to be, we're just going to go and do our time kind of experience.
Yeah.
And like, man, that's something that I really appreciate about Cowboy churches. There's a lot of people who are like genuinely just pumped to be there,
Right.
and they're pumped to see you there too.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, it's a family, and we're excited about, we have fun with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means that we're having conversations like this that are just like, hey, we're kind of casual about it, but we get to experience the joy of the Lord and being in His presence.
Right.
That's a really cool thing. That's the
Well-
way God wants it to be.
And I think like we talk about another assumption or whatever. There's two sides to this assumption. And so I'm gonna take both from it, and y'all can kind of chime in where you want to. I think one thing is when people first, it's when they hear about it and when they show. There's two assumptions: when they hear about it, when they show up. One, when they hear about it, a lot of people assume, oh well, this is just gonna be probably 100, 150 people in this little old like barn somewhere, like you
Yeah.
said, like out in a tent or whatever. And then they show up, and
you're looking for a spot
yeah,
on
you're,
Sunday
you're-
morning.
You're looking for a parking
get there too
spot,
late.
and you walk
Yeah.
in the sanctuary, and you're like, this is a lot. Like, I mean, because we're averaging about, at the time of this video, we're averaging about 780 people a Sunday. So I think the first assumption is oh well, it's just some rink dink whatever.
Right.
But then the other side of that is, oh well, it's too big of a church. It's too big of a church. There's too many things. But what I'm saying to that is, man, for the church to be the size that it is, if you are even halfway just intentional about getting connected, there
Yeah.
are so many ways and people that will connect with you and want to get connected and being part of things, and just ministries that are offered, whether you're whether it's from children's church to the youth ministry, to the young adult, or I would call young adult, but the 20s and 30s ministry,
Yeah.
just to your average adult who's got kids, that are in high school or in elementary or whatever. There is somewhere to be, all the way up to where, man, we got people who are, I mean, they're in their prime, they're in their 70s and 80s, and they're rocking with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I heard that, and it just kind of made me think
Yeah.
about an assumption that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's
a
true.
lot of times when they hear Cowboy Church, you just think it's one of two things. It's like, that's just, there's gonna be 50 of them in there, and then all of a
Just
sudden they
this
show up
old
and
little
there's
barn,
like,
this old
It's-
tent.
it's
yeah.
too big.
So I don't know. I think that's a pretty cool deal for me that I look at. I'm like, that's a pretty average assumption that
Yeah.
is
Uh-huh.
not very
Uh-huh.
I would
true.
agree,
So
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of people nowadays, and I think it's becoming a lot more prevalent among Christians to kind of have this idea. They'll put it this way: I love Jesus. I don't like church.
Ooh,
And,
yeah.
and that's always been an interesting thought to me. Macy, how would you respond? What are your thoughts about that idea about loving Jesus but not loving church?
Yeah.
What comes to mind when you say that?
I'm interested to hear this.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I grew up in church, and
Mhm.
I like I still love Jesus, but very much in high school specifically, I would be like, I love Jesus, but like I would sometimes dread going to church
Yeah.
on a Sunday morning, and I think a lot of that had to do with like we were just talking about culture and like just the people making it exciting and everything, but the older I've gotten and like the further into my faith I've gotten, like I I don't see myself like loving Jesus and not having the church.
Right.
Church, like I have grown so much in knowledge and like in my community with their church. And so like hot take, but like I don't see how you could, I see the benefit of going to church
Mhm.
and growing your relationship. But I don't know.
That's
That's
good.
hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like, never mind.
That comment has always just like kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I
Yeah.
get where people are coming from.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
I-
they've been hurt by church.
That's
you know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
and so like I respect it 100%. Like, hey,
church hurt
you,
is
you,
real.
Yes.
you've been hurt. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Mhm.
you're totally. Let me say this: you're totally justified
Yeah.
in that hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're
Mhm.
justified in that. Here's the thing, though, is and this is where well, you know what? I'm gonna throw it to you because this is probably where you're going. And
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Well, the thing that I come back to is this: we're called to love what God loves and hate what God
Mhm.
hates. And how does Jesus feel about the church? Man, he laid down his life for
Yeah.
it. You're telling me he doesn't love the church? So how can I hate what Jesus loves? And that raises the question then, okay, so what do you mean by church?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get caught up in the building that you meet in
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the program that you have on Sunday
Right.
and the clothes that you wear and
Yeah.
the things that you say. And they have all these expectations and assumptions about what church is.
Yeah.
And it's not what God says it is. It's not the place that you go to.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
the things that you do for an hour on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know,
not just the
it's the people, it's the community of faith.
Yeah.
It's the body of believers. And that's where, like, hey, you might not like some of the church experiences that you've had, and you've been hurt by some of those
Yeah.
church experiences because that's what broken people and hurt people do.
Yeah.
They hurt others.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
and we're not perfect. The
No.
church is not, the penthouse of all the spiritual elite. It's a hospital for the broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, there, like you said, there's always human, and like when we talk about that of the church hurt type of thing, like it's like I said, very valid. You know, what I mean,
Yeah.
some stuff that's
Yeah,
happened
most
that I've heard
definitely.
some stuff. I'm like, yeah, I would be completely upset.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But the other thing is, okay, I have to remember, and maybe that's you listening now. Like I've got to remember, hey, that's not God. That's a human thing. Somebody messed up, and I'm not saying that they were justified in what they did.
Yeah.
What I am saying is though, don't blame God. If we might be mad at God for that. Like remember, these are they're humans.
That's
you know what I
right.
mean?
That's right.
Which is a very very tough deal and something that is very hard. Like I mean, I think we could all agree to say if we're going through something, it's really hard to sit here and hear that and think about
Yeah.
it and say,
Yeah.
well, yeah, I know that, but still, you're hurt, and
Yeah.
it's a real feeling, a real emotion.
Yeah.
But I think it's remembering, okay, hey, God still is God, and He still loves me, and more than anything, when I'm in that spot, I need to have other believers that are going to
Yeah.
encourage
Mhm.
me and be around that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you said, it's not always about the program or the Sunday morning,
Right.
but it is about, okay, I have got to be surrounded by, in some way, shape, or form, some other believers that are going to do a couple things. They're going to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
They're going to encourage me, and they're going to just walk with life through
Mhm.
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
through life. And no matter what, but if you call yourself, like, you need those things. You need
Mhm.
other people. God, I mean, this is all. God never said do life alone. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's the tough part is it's not that I don't believe somebody when they say, oh, well, I love God, but I'm upset at church. No, I believe you.
Right.
And I even believe you love God. Where my worry comes in is, man, I'm worried about whenever Satan does hit you and you need somebody there for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe you do have those people, and maybe it's in a small church, maybe it's in whatever. I'm not telling you that you got to be at Cowboy Church. I'm not telling you got to be any certain church. I'm saying no matter what, whether it's a small group of people that are for sure believers, you've got to have those people
Yeah.
that are surrounding, and then just
Yeah, I think going back, I guess, to your question, like I do feel like that is like I guess, an assumption in a way of like, oh, you have to go to church to, like, only to like grow your relationship with the Lord, and that's not true. Like I remember during COVID, like a lot of churches like went online, like sometimes didn't meet, whatever, and so I remember specifically in that time, my family like had church at home.
Mm.
And that fed into having like a Bible study group that literally just like we got around a campfire, or my dad was really good about like if he went to a roping arena or something with some friends, like we would have, a little small devotional, and like we called that our church. And so I do think like, maybe there's I guess the assumption is the right word for it, is like people assume that you have to be in the church building to get that, and that's
Mhm.
Not the case at all. Like
Yeah.
I've have friends who like we're a community of people, and like we go hang out at each other's house and we have like biblical conversation, and we share the word with each other, and like we break bread. Like I think it's Acts 2:42 through
Mhm.
47 talks about it. I think like it's just a great example and a great picture of what the church is, and like
Yeah.
we're carrying
Well,
each other's burdens and all of those things. And so
and I mean,
and it's
you,
not in a church building.
you
so.
saying that goes back to like the core of what pretty much I think we've all said right here, though, that the biggest misconception or assumption that most people believe is the church is a building.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's not.
Yeah.
The church is people. The church is the body of believers.
Yeah.
And that's why I say when people are so, like, hey, no, you might be upset at a certain place,
Right.
but to be upset, the church is not the building. The
Yeah.
church has got to be a body of
That's
like
right.
of people, because that building up there is not like it's
It didn't do anything
there's-
wrong.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a great place that we can worship in, but there's nothing special. It's a couple of walls and with a concrete floor and
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the church is, as it talks about Matthew, hey, where 2 or 3 are gathered, I'll be there. But you being a part of a church of some way, shape, or form, that is, hey, I am with other believers. We are strengthening our knowledge
Yeah.
of the Lord
Mhm.
and growing in the Lord together. So I say all that. I mean, you bring up a good question that really got a lot deeper than what I was
Yeah.
expecting. You know what I mean? But it's solid. But we do encourage you that, like, hey, maybe you've been out of church for a long time. Maybe you have been. You've got some church hurt, but you're ready to say, hey, I'm ready to get plugged back in. Man, find a church, whether it's here, check it out, do something. But we would love to have you here, because it's like I said, people from all different backgrounds. But man, we just looking forward to that. But I mean, man, I think it's been a pretty good conversation. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Fun. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's
Good.
and then, that's why the three of us got together is to have conversations like this, not just about what we believe, but also what's going on here around
Yeah.
Cowboy Church
Yeah.
and meeting people in the community. And I think the three of us we have a lot of fun together. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we also
sometimes,
have different backgrounds, and we come from different demographics. I grew up in church. You grew up in church. Cody, you didn't grow up in church as much.
No.
And so
But then I jumped right into ministry.
and that's right. That's right. And so we got some different perspectives here, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this podcast, and I'm excited to see what God's gonna do in us, through us, and here just as a church family.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
it's gonna be fun.
All right. Well, hey, we are glad you joined us. I don't know how we're going to sign off of here, but
in progress, right?
but
See you
but,
next
but we're in
time.
progress. So this is me signing off.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Adios, my friends.